Hello, welcome to the latest edition of the Starkville Daily News Digital Express. I'm Danny P. Smith, sports editor of the Starkville Daily News, and this is Joel Coleman, our Mississippi State beat writer. And Joel, it seems like with every week in the high school football season, depending on how the teams are doing, each game gets bigger and bigger, and that's the case for East Webster. Wolverines keep winning, the games keep getting bigger, and this week opens up their division schedule, and they're going up the road to a little piece to Calhoun City, which you wrote in your Monday morning quarterback analysis this week. Calhoun City's always been a thorn in their side, and this is a chance for the Wolverines to do something about that.
Yeah, above all else, thorn in the side might not even describe it as accurately as maybe the brick wall that has kind of always stood in their way a little bit. Even the year, even the year a few years ago when East Webster played for a state championship in Jackson. They actually finished runner-up in the division that year because they had lost to Calhoun City earlier in the year. So Calhoun City has always been that mountain that East Webster has to climb, or at least the last decade it's been that way. It's been about a decade, I think, since East Webster has defeated Calhoun City. They just time and time again have kind of stood in the way a little bit. But I'll tell you what, I've watched this East Webster team now 3 games. I think I've seen them, 3 of their 6 games, and just a tough, gritty, refuses to lose bunch. And look, I don't know if that'll mean anything when they go northward to Calhoun City and they travel up Highway 9 and they get there. Who knows what will happen when they get there. But I do know that this team doesn't seem the least bit at all concerned about what's happened the last decade. There is a mentality that I've seen so far out of that East Webster bunch that just, like I said, refuses to lose, and they take advantage of every opportunity. If you give them an inch, they take a mile. The other day against Union, Union led East Webster 20-7 at halftime, but they were, a fly's rear end away from being up 27-7 at halftime. They were right there on the doorstep of the goal line, and with a few seconds before halftime, fumbled it away. So Union didn't push across that score and go up 3 scores at halftime. And, had East Webster been in a 20-point hole at halftime, I don't know if they'd have, dug out of that. But as it was a 13-point deficit at halftime. Union never scored again. And so they literally gave East Webster an inch, and East Webster took victory because of that. And they're just a team that any little mistake, anything, they take advantage of it. And so that's what, I don't know which of these 2 teams, Calhoun City and East Webster, I don't know who's the best team. Playing on the home field at Calhoun City, considering history, some might favor Calhoun City. Considering East Webster 6-0 and they've tackled every challenge so far, some may favor East Webster. I don't know, but I do know that it's going to be a tough East Webster bunch, and I'm for sure not going to count them out despite what recent history says.
Yeah, well, that's going to be our game of the week this week, but another game that could very easily be the game of the week is Starkville Academy going to Pillow Academy. Both teams are 5-1. It's a district game, one that Starkville Academy needs to win. And Starkville Academy keeps responding week after week after week. After that first game loss to Lamar School, they just keep winning and got a district win last week against Washington School, 28-7. So it's just another game of big games for Chase Nicholson and his bunch.
All he does is win over there at Starkville Academy.
There's a culture there.
Chase has built they, like any football team, they take their lumps every now and then. They took one on opening weekend, but they just seem to me like a team that every year, for the most part, they adapt the mentality of their head coach and just improve week to week, and it seems like they're keeping that rolling this year. And I know it's a tough road test down in Pillow, but you just look there. We got it in front of us. WWWWW. They keep, kind of like East Webster, keep finding ways to win, keep finding ways to improve, and until I see it, I'll find it hard to believe that Starkville Academy is going to take a step back this late in the year. They're a team that seems to strengthen as the season goes along, and you continue to see it out of them. So
another road game against a veteran team. Pillow's got a senior-dominated team, so we'll see how that one goes. But we have some other games. Homecomings are dotting the landscape right now. We've got a lot of teams that are It's that time of year that homecomings are going. The weather doesn't feel like it, but they're going to have homecoming anyway. So, but Starkville High School is one of them, and a couple of Clay County teams, West Point and Oak Hill, are having their homecoming. Had homecomings last week, so it's a lot of interesting festivities. The queens will be crowned. And
usually the storylines in those games, and depending on which school you're talking about, a lot of times on homecoming, you have a heavy favorite on one side of you. It doesn't always work out that way, but a lot of times it does. And a lot of times on homecoming, the storyline is just can the guys get their heads in the game for 48 minutes when all week long they really haven't been in the game with homecoming stuff and spirit weeks and homecoming parades and all the things that go along with that. And so it's always interesting to see, even when teams are playing lesser competition, sometimes the minds are on the fun stuff around as opposed to on the football game itself. And so sometimes even really good teams struggle on homecoming. So that's kind of something, I guess, to keep an eye out for in those three games.
The coaches I've talked to say they don't want the guys to not participate in the homecoming festivities. They want them to enjoy everything that surrounds homecoming. But they do want the football game is kind of the center of it all. So if you don't win the football game, it kind of puts
sours everything else.
Everything. So we'll touch on one more game before we deal with one little item on the Mississippi State beat. But Choctaw County's got a big game. It's their first district game against Aberdeen, and that always seems to be an intriguing game for them.
Yeah, and Choctaw County has seemed to be settling in a little bit with Coach Roberts, and I really thought that they would. There's a lot of talent with the Chargers. You look at their losses, they're all against good competition. It's not like there's a loss on that schedule that stands out as, whoa, they definitely shouldn't have lost that game or whatever. I mean, there's actually, there's a couple of those games that Choctaw County would love to have back. They could have won a couple of those games that were L's and didn't, but you could see all along, even while the losses were coming in that 1-3 start, that there was plenty of talent there. Sometimes you just, with a new coach, you gotta do some feeling out, and I think there's a little bit of feeling out period there. And I'll tell you what, Choctaw County's to me a better football team than Kosciuszko. But 2 weeks ago when they played Kosciuszko, everything with Choctaw County seemed to click. And they really look like a team that was starting to get on a roll. And then they go to Clarksdale and pick up another win, big road win.
That was an impressive win to me, because Clarksdale's kind of an established team.
Yeah, and they went over there, and now you've got district play coming. And, it's a tough district. I don't know where Choctaw County will finish in this thing, but they really are getting better week by week, which you can anticipate because that whole, with Coach Roberts and things getting used to everybody and everybody getting used to him, you would just have to assume that the more familiarity everybody has with one another, that things would start to click. And you see that now with Choctaw County back to 500 and with district play starting. It seems like they're starting to kind of roll at the right time.
We've hit on the major high school games this week. Mississippi State, of course, has a much-needed open date after taking it on the chin. I guess that's the
They took it on the chin, the backside, everywhere.
But the big story this week was the rumor coming out about Coach Moorhead possibly being a target for Rutgers for their vacant head coaching position. Since he has sensed it, I don't know if he's necessarily denied it last night, but he pretty much said his focus was strictly on getting the Bulldogs better and not other jobs.
He did, and sometimes with these coaches, and this is one of those instances, they get mentioned for these things by people that aren't even involved in these things. You just have a random publication that puts out some guys that might make sense. And so basically what you have sometimes is like a Joel Coleman just sitting around at his desk somewhere coming up with names that make sense. And so somebody basically did that. And some others have followed, so it's not just one dude, but there's been several folks that say, Joe Moorhead might make sense at Rutgers. I don't know that anyone that has dug into the Rutgers program has said anyone involved with Rutgers was interested in Joe Moorhead. So some of this was more so just people mentioning Joe as a possible guy that Rutgers might be interested in, kind of thing. And so, but the natural question then becomes, Joe, have you been contacted? Are you interested? That sort of thing. And he pretty much shot down all that on Tuesday night after practice. And look, a coach isn't going to stand up there and say, "Yeah, I gave Rutgers a call, see if they wanted me." He wasn't going to say that anyway.
Yeah. And he may have been truthful, and then 5 minutes later he may have got the call too.
Yeah, he could have left the press conference and gave him a call. Who knows?
So,
But yeah, it's one of those deals where he's probably not going to stand up there and admit it anyway. But it did seem like, I mean, he gave a flat out denial of any contact between he and them and representatives and anything, and then went on to talk about how he preaches to his guys having a singularity of focus, and said that he has that himself, that all he has been focused on after getting the tail kicking at Auburn is getting things straightened out. And we'll see how that plays out over the course of the next few months. And after the season, I mean, he does have Big Ten experience and things. He does kind of have Northeastern roots. You can see as to how that he may be a guy that would intrigue Rutgers. But quite frankly, and this is Joel talking here, I don't think he would leave Mississippi State for Rutgers. I don't think. I mean, you heard Dan Mullen talk about Jeff Collins before in the Florida, saying that was a lateral move kind of deal. To me, Mississippi State and where it is in the SEC, that is a step down move for Joe Moorhead, to me. But hey, he may have a different family situation. Who knows what will happen? But as of right now, it doesn't seem like there's any fire to that smoke.
Yeah, it was definitely something to bear watching. And of course, they have to get ready for Tennessee. That's probably the number one important thing on his agenda right now. Is trying to
recruiting for the next few days.
Well,
and
that's
then
right.
Tennessee.
Yeah, and then and making sure that they get back on the winning track at Tennessee, and not this Saturday, but the Saturday after, which will be an 11 o'clock kickoff that was announced this week. But another week of football is upon us, and we'll see what happens this weekend, and we'll be back next week to discuss next week's games. For Danny P. Smith and Joel Coleman, we'll see you next time.